Hi everybody and welcome to Viewing Gods Explosion Network's American Gods Aftershow. I'm Dylan Blight, and this week we are talking about episode 207, Treasure of the Sun, directed by Paco Calbzas, written by Heather Belson. This week we basically got a full-on Shadow Sweeney episode, with Shadow finding him at the start of the episode, passed out under a bridge, and then Sweeney basically talking to everyone throughout the episode inside the funeral home as he makes his way through it, in a bit of a state. He's in a bit of a mess, drunk and physically just seeing bugs and decaying and death at all points coming for him. He's hearing these banshee screams. He feels like death is finally coming for him. And throughout the episode, we get to learn a lot about his past. Maybe, it's up for debate, of course, a little bit. And then he attempts to move his future forward by finally trying to get away from Wednesday and being like, Wednesday, I'm done with it. And then, of course, the episode ends with his, quote, death, which I'll tackle a little bit, of course, because that's a big part of the episode. And then the only other thing in this episode that happens really is we get a little bit of Laura and her making her way back to Shadow somewhat, but that scene was kind of throwaway. It felt throwaway to me. Nothing. It just seemed like set up for the next episode, I guess, is my thing. It doesn't seem like it didn't fit in great to this episode. In the episode itself, best episode of the season. I feel like that's a easy one to say, easily the best episode of the season. I kind of wish that the season in whole had have been much to the quality of this episode and last week's episode, because I would easily say that the last two episodes have been the best of the season, and I kind of wish the rest of the season had the same kind of quality. But if the last episode finishes somewhat along this quality, then we've had at least three what I would consider good episodes, and then there was, episode 1 as well. So there's like half the season, like episode 1 was good too. So potentially we're looking at half of the season being good and then half of it being somewhere between meh and bad. So we'll see how it goes. But this was easily the best. You had this fantastic writing from Heather Belson on the script. You had these fantastic interactions between the characters. And although the story at times was very vague, and it was meant to be vague, especially when it came to Sweeney's origin story and what all that means, the interactions and stuff weren't so vague that you couldn't understand what the hell they were talking about. Like, you understood the stories, what we're being told, but you weren't sure if they were... You weren't sure what they actually meant, I guess, is the thing. And then you have this performance from Pablo Schreiber in this episode, of course, which is fantastic. His best performance in the show by far. Him kind of proving himself as a more emotional actor, I guess, because up until this point he's been somewhat the comedy, I guess, and the back and forth between him and Laura has been funny, and that's some of my favorite stuff in the show. It's still just like this episode, he's just down on his luck. He's out of it. He's just emotional, kind of. You also get to see him do a little bit of a different accent and character when we do the flashback scenes and stuff. So it was really good for Pablo, I thought, in this episode. And then his last moments, which we'll talk about in a little bit, of course, they were really good as well. My only one real problem with this episode is the stuff with Shadow. I'm sick of Shadow as a character, I feel, and I understand that he's meant to be blind, ridiculously blind in the books, which, again, I haven't read the book, I'm sorry. But I understand he's supposed to be blind, but it's supposed to represent the blind faith that we have when it comes to the gods and stuff, and I understand he's supposed to be the representation of that, but as a character that you're watching in a TV show, he is just annoying. He isn't ridiculously annoying at this point, and how dumb he is comes across. I'm just like, please, just go. I would literally rather Sweeney be the star of the show and be following his character and his story at this point, and that had been the actual what the entire story was about at this point, because I'm kind of sick of Shadow. And you watch the trailer for next week's episode, if you watched it after the episode aired or on YouTube or something, and it's again got him just denying Wednesday after he's being told like by so many people that Wednesday's bad. He's still just like, nah, I don't believe you. I'm like, it's ridiculous how fucking dumb you are at this point. And it's so tiresome. That's my only one real problem. I don't feel like there's a problem with really the actors, directors, even the writers, because they've shoehorned themselves into a certain way they have to write Shadow at this point. They've kind of stuck to it. You know, they're all sitting around in the writer room and like this is Shadow. This is the character of Shadow. Everyone better love him. We don't. Well, I know I don't. That's for sure. All right, so let's dive into Mad Sweeney's origin story, which was a big part of this episode, of course. And the main point, or main question I feel like asking is which one of the origin stories was true, and if any of them were true, because we don't really know. I think it's open to interpretation if you can believe any of them or if they're all kind of meld together or but it doesn't really matter. It's not really the point. So let's go through the story. So you got story 1. This is obviously the definitely the no one, because it's him trying to remember, and the point is that he literally Sweeney can't even remember his own past, and he starts with this original story about a prophecy being given to him by a woman, and it's the funniest one because you get to hear Pablo Schreiber with this thing say, I was playing with her boobies several times, and they liked the line so much that they made him say it like 2 or 3 more times, and then I played with her boobies again. That was funny. That was amusing. But that one, no, it's like, oh, prophecy, woman, killed, blah, 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 blah. And then Billquist, and because at this point he's talking to Billquist, she interrupts and says, no, I thought he was married. And then we go to what I'd say is story number 2, which is him. He's a crazed ex-king living out in a forest with his mind kind of lost and scrambled. His family comes to visit him and seems like feed him as he's living out here in the wild somewhat. And then he starts remembering things about his life. It's like, oh, this is your daughter. Oh, you're my wife. What happened to that red dress that you wore at the wedding? What happened to that red dress? And then she starts like filling him in with details a little bit here again, and then he starts going mad and yelling about the grey monks and the priests that put the curse on him and these sorts of things. And that's like story 1. And now story 1 could tie into the rest, I feel, quite fine, or it doesn't, it may not, I don't know. That's what I'm saying, like it's kind of open to interpretation somewhat what this all means, especially by the time you get to story 4, the last one here. But story 3 seems to fit in prior to that second story. The baby, his wife is still pregnant. She has their child inside her, and he's got a crown on his head at this point, and he's walking through a forest, and he's discussing the monks with her and saying that he's like, I'm going to go fucking tell them. I'm going to, tell them to get the hell off our land. They're bad. They're cursed. They're bad people, blah, 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 blah. So this is basically it's the priest, the white coat, grey coats or whatever. It's like, I took it as the Catholic Church coming into Ireland, I guess is what it is, the Catholic church religion, gods. So I don't know, like all of it maybe at once. How exactly they got there, I don't know. Maybe it is really people coming in because they're just creeping over the border from the gods who have just brought the religion into. I don't know. It doesn't really. I suppose it's not really important how they get there, but and then everything seems fine. She's like talking to him like, oh, we should all just start to get along. We shouldn't really have a problem. Everything's going to be fine. And he seems fine until he starts hearing these ringing bells off in the distance, which I couldn't hear. So it's all in his mind. And then he goes and he explains that he's going to this tower that they're being built. I would say it's meant to be a church because he just calls it a tower, but I would presume it's a church. He then just talks about chucking their book, presumably the Bible, I guess, their Bible, into the water, and then he spears a priest and kills him, and then is cursed by one of the other priests or something along those lines. Is how it all works out. And that's how he says he got cursed, and so on and so forth. And then the 4th story we get, which is one where he's down talking with Ibis, who's of course writing in his book the stories, which is weird considering season 1, often when we got these sorts of stories, it would be from Ibis's point of view and him telling the stories, but in this one it's Sweeney making his way around the house, interacting with several different people that's kind of setting off the stories. But then I'm like, are you even interacting with these people? Because they're not there when you're done talking to them, but whatever. Sweeney is fighting in a battle to protect Ireland in this last one from the gods bringing in the Catholic religion is what I took it as, or the people. So it all ties into like Catholicism coming into Ireland. Ibis describes him in this part as the god of the sun and the god of luck. And then we see Sweeney kicking ass in battle with a huge spear, which I think is important, and I'll get to in just a sec. And he basically tears a lot of people to shreds. He's putting it through them. It's rather gory. It's probably not. This is the most gory this season's been. Like, I swear that the first season had way more violence. This season's been pretty pretty tame when it came to violence, I think. Nothing I can think of. Apparently the person who's leading the battle against him is his own grandfather, who has one eye, and is important again in a second. And he leads the battle against him because when Sweeney was a kid, his grandfather heard a tale or a prophecy, I guess, that one of his grandsons would kill him when he was older. So then he tried to drown all of his grandchildren, but Sweeney survived, and then he's grown up, and now he's leading this battle. And yes, he does kill the one-eyed grandfather. He like fully takes his head off. And then as he's standing there and he's going over it, they've been talking about it. He then goes, no, wait, it was Wednesday. Oh, he calls him Gungnir, actually, throughout the entire episode, I suppose. But Wednesday. He says, no, it was him. And then all of a sudden he's holding Wednesday's head in the thing. So I think you got to take this, you got to remember this, you got to remember this whole thing. It's like one-eyed person, could be Wednesday. Wednesday has one eye. I think the eyes actually switch if you watch the episode. The person is nowhere near as tall as Wednesday. It's all details. And then once the story's done, Ibis says, when they're trying to work out what is actually the truth, Ibis just says stories are truer than the truth. Is any of that real? Don't know. What exactly is the truth? Is I don't know if it's actually important to break down, but it could be when it comes to it's less important for Sweeney's character than it is more so important for Shadow's character in the truth, I think, because I'm like, was the truth hidden here in front of us the entire episode somewhat to what exactly is going on here? And it all comes down to like this spear, I suppose, because at the start of the episode we see that Shadow is given Wednesday's spear, which he heals using part of the now fully grown tree, Igazel. He tells Shadow to guard the spear. And then Sweeney, in the last story that was just going over, explains that he's shown using this massive spear, and he's talked about how big of a spear person he is and how he used the spear in battle. And we know that all of the times the spear kills people, that's going to fill Wednesday with whatever. It charges him, you know. It's how he's getting off. He gets off on war. He's the god of war. He's not the god of war, but gets off on war. He wants battle, right? So the spear killing people. Now at the end, when it switches to being Wednesday's head, when Sweeney's holding it, and it's like, is that really what happened? Possibly, because it could just be what we're seeing with Shadow, a repeat is what I was thinking. You got Olden Day Tale, where Wednesday gets with Sweeney, gives him the spear, builds him up, causes this huge amount of conflict, causes Sweeney to kill a whole heap of people with it, and then ultimately kills him with it, which is actually just part of his plan, because that's it. He dies in the battle, he dies, goes to Valhalla, reborn later, and so on and so forth, repeats it. So he's recently just given Shadow the spear, says guard it. Now Shadow's just killed someone with it, which we'll get to in a second. Of course, he kills Sweeney with the spear. So that's the start of it. It could be a repeating spectrum, you know, of that's how he does it. He just wants to cause these battles, cause these wars, kill a heap of people with spear, and then ultimately Shadow's meant to kill him, and then that's his ultimate goal. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on this currently at the moment. So getting closer to the big battle here. Sweeney is in amongst all these trips around the house. At one stage, he does come across Shadow in his room, which I was like, oh, Shadow has a nice little room. I don't think we've actually covered this in previous episodes at this point, but he does actually have a room. He's not sleeping on the couch. And he starts fucking with him a bit and then warning him about Wednesday once again. And then he takes Shadow's coin. Shadow doesn't like that, of course, but he says Sweeney shoots it off to the Horde, or the Sun, whatever you want to call it, the Horde, his treasure chest. And he says he'll only give it back to Shadow if he stays out of the way when the time comes. Shadow, of course, is like, I have no idea what you're on about. You're fucking talking a whole bunch of shit. I don't really know what you're talking about. And then he says, but Sweeney makes him agree to stay out of it when the time comes, and he'll give him his coin back. Shadow, of course, agrees because he wants his coin back, and then he gets his coin back. And then as he's leaving, Sweeney warns him, saying, quote, Wednesday, me, fuck all of the gods. We're not the heroes, Shadow. So it's like a lot of this episode is just Sweeney really just fucking throwing out truth bombs to everyone, the audience, Shadow, just everyone, and everyone's just kind of, especially Shadow's just being very naive to the one person who's actually trying to help him to the enemy who's in front of him, and that enemy being Wednesday, of course. Later at night, Wednesday's holding this toast for everyone, a last meal before the official war begins type of thing. It's like the last supper, I guess. He's like, we've got the spear, a Gizul, whatever the tree's name is. I can't say it. It's fully grown, let's kick off, let's do battle. And then Sweeney comes in and he's telling Wednesday that he goes in this last battle. He's talking shit. He's saying we're done, we're through. Now, they had a scene like this just before in the kitchen, a briefer one where Wednesday pretty much just told him to go finish the job with Laura Killer, get the coin back, shut the fuck up, basically says stop being a little sook about everything and just go get your fucking coin. Stop talking about honor. Just do what you need to do. And Sweeney refuses. He's like, you may not have honor, but I do have honor. And now he's like trying to push Wednesday for that honor. Like, you promised me a battle. I've done what I owed you. I killed her. It's not my fault she came back. All these sorts of things. And then Sweeney goes to grab the spear, which is sitting on the table in front of Shadow. Of course, Shadow doesn't let him grab the spear because he was told by Wednesday to protect the spear. And then Sweeney brings up the promise. You promised when the time come to stay out of it. Shadow, stay out of it. Shadow says, cool, yes, but I also made a promise to Wednesday to protect the spear and also him. We have a compact to protect you, kind of thing. And then, of course, they get into a fight. Bit of a fist fight. First time they've really gone at it. Well, no, it is. It's the first time they've gone at it since we saw him in season 1. They're really beating the shit out of each other. And then they eventually pause long enough that Sweeney gets to say, explain what happened with Laura and the car crash. He says that he's the one that caused it upon Wednesday's orders. And then when Shadow kind of hangs there for a second thinking about it a little bit, he then says, and I've fucked your wife as well. He's like really trying to push him, especially with that last bit of information, I guess. At first, it seems when he's telling him the stuff, it seems like he's trying to turn him. Be like, I did cause the car crash for Laura, but it was on his orders. But then when he says, and I fucked Laura as well, it's like he's really trying to push Shadow's buttons. And then Shadow goes to get up and walk over to Wednesday to confront Wednesday, I guess. We don't really find out, of course, because as he's walking over there, Wednesday, who this entire freaking time is just sitting there eating like nothing's going on. Everyone else has kind of left the room at this point. They're like, oh, Sweeney's going at it. I guess we'll just walk out of the room, do what's necessary to be done. And then as Shadow's walking over to him to talk to Wednesday, to confront him, I guess, about what Sweeney just told him, Sweeney goes to throw the spear, and then somehow Shadow does epic Matrix type move thing. It's coming past him on his left side, and Shadow manages to like grab the spear, dive onto the ground I suppose he dived onto the ground under the weight of it, or just like as he went to grab it, he dove at the same time. Either way, as he dives to bring it around, it swings around 180 behind him, and it goes up and, of course, ends up inside Mad Sweeney's stomach, and he's stuck there to the ground. Shadow didn't mean to do it on purpose. Straight away, he says, "I'm sorry," as it's all happening, but nonetheless, he has speared Sweeney right through the chest. And Sweeney, being the legend that he is, and in Pablo Schreiber's like one of his great, if it is his final moment in the show, which potentially it is, and they want you to believe it is, he gets a really good last moment as he goes down. His final fuck you to Wednesday is he grabs the spear, sends it off to the Horde. I think in the episode he says, the spear's with the sun now or whatever, but it's off with the Horde, which we saw in episode 1. Hidden in that place there, and then he holds up both his middle fingers, falls back, lands on his back, and then his final words, "I used to be king," and he seems to pass away and die there. It's sad somewhat, but also epic. I don't know. Like it's pretty badass the way he goes down, but then it's a sad way for him to die, and Sweeney is a sad character. I feel like Sweeney's just been a sad character this entire show somewhat. That's kind of why you know, like as he's going down, and the more I thought about this episode after it was finished, I was like, damn, I really wish Sweeney had been like I don't know, like I could see this show just get rid of Shadow. Make the show, well, keep Shadow in, but he's a supporting character, and the show is from freaking Sweeney's point of view as he's following through doing all this stuff. I don't know. I'm just like, Sweeney is and always has been one of the more interesting and fun characters to have on screen, and that's why where I'm like, is he 100% dead? You know, that's the next big question, and a lot of people are going to go, yeah, he dies, and I'll look it up. Book spoilers, in case you don't, if you don't want book spoilers, he dies way earlier in the book apparently. When I looked it up, he dies way earlier than this. So people are like, oh, they've finally done it. They finally like caught up a little bit to the book, and there's no way he's coming back. And then I saw a lot of people on Twitter and stuff when I looked up what people's thoughts were being on the episode, saying, okay, yeah, it makes sense that he's dead because he's going to be in. Pablo Schreiber recently got cast as Master Chief in the Halo series that's coming up, based on the video game, of course. And that's why that's what everyone's using as ammo to say why he must be fully dead. But just to throw this one out as we head into episode 8 next week, of course, the final episode of season 2, we do have Laura on her way. Now, Laura, we see she hitched a ride. She had this brief conversation with Mama G in one of her diners, and then Mama G basically tells her off. She goes like full fire mode and was like, don't be talking shit to me, girl. And then she talks, Laura explains what she wants, you know, blood for her love potion, blah, 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 blah. And then Mama G says, hey, you've already got what you need. You've got the coin in there. And very vague about what exactly it means, and then hands Laura a piece of paper. We don't know what's on that piece of paper. I don't know if it's actually important or it's supposed to just be directions or something, and we're all like, we could be reading into it too much, I guess. But then she hitchhikes her way back to the funeral home, and then we have one scene with her quickly in this where she's seen getting off her and she's walking towards the place. So it seems like she could walk inside at any moment. Now she has two ways potentially that she could just bring Sweeney back, I guess, between the coin plus potentially the blood of love and whatever potion that she got, the voodoo potion. Both of these seem options that could be used to bring Mad Sweeney back, potentially. Just throwing it out there. I'm just saying it is and could be a possibility. Okay. Now, if he's dead, I'm okay with him being dead somewhat. I understand that, like, his death could, like, it breaks up the whole dynamic with him and Laura and all these sorts of things, and like sets Laura back on this road with Shadow and all these whatever else. Like, story wise, does a lot of things. He took the spear, he fucked the spear off, so of course that fucks with Wednesday's plans a lot. That sets that whole off in motion. Like, him dying and what happens here causes a lot of ripple effects. I understand. My biggest problem with him being dead is nothing to do with the story and then potentially fucking up story beats. It is more to do with the show and its cast members, and the fact that Pablo Schreiber and the character of Mad Sweeney have been two of the strongest elements of this show in season 1 and then consistently into season 2. Him and Laura's back and forth has been one of my favorite parts of the show in full, and I feel like a lot of people would say the exact same thing, that I would be somewhat worried if he's dead. Now, if they're going to bring him back, I don't know, it would be half-assed if they, of course, just do it straight away in the start of episode 3. People would be like, oh, why'd you do that terrible cliffhanger thing? He could come back for season 3, however, and I don't think that matters with the Halo thing, because think about the huge gap of time we had between seasons 1 and 2. You could have another 1.5 years between season 2 and 3 of American Gods, of course. And then, like, I'm like, that's, like, he can do the Halo show and he can do this as well. There's no reason he can't do both, potentially. If he's dead fully, and he most likely is, let's be honest, he's not going to be around in the next episode, and I'm not going to be able to judge what we see solely in next episode as what it means to have a show to have American Gods without Pablo Schreiber. It would really have to be wait until we get to season 3 and we start watching it, and they would have to introduce and change some character dynamics or something, or really start getting a move on with the show's direct plot and war or what have you, to really kind of pick up the pace that you lose with getting rid of a cast member and a character that was really a lively element of your show to a point. So The only thing, yeah, that's the thing I'm worried about. Losing such a strong character and a strong actor. We'll have to see what happens though. But at this stage, I'll definitely go, 80% he's dead. I'll go 20% there's a chance he comes back. Only because Laura is literally about to walk in the door with 2 ways potentially to bring him back. Just throwing it out there, okay? So there was only one other little bit of tidbit in this episode that was kind of worth going over quickly, which is that we do see that Bilquis has now adopted her new form of worship. She's now doing these services and things, and then when Sweeney comes in and starts talking to her, he starts pointing out, he's like, oh, this is what you're doing now, is it to get your kicks off? And she says, I adapt, we all do. And then she's like, well, not you, look at you, you're not adapting at all, you're kind of up shit creek. But yeah, overall, really, really good episode. It was a really focused episode, mostly, of course, with Sweeney, and I'm scared, I guess, to go into the final episode to see what the fuck they do without him in it. And then also just watching that teaser for next week's episode and just you see a shot of Shadow lying next to the grass on Laura, and then her being like, Wednesday's fucked, Wednesday does it all. And he's like, nah, I don't believe you. I'm just like, oh, I fucking hate Shadow. I hate you. It's such a weird thing to be like, I like this show and I want to like this show, but I fucking hate the main character so much, which is such a weird conundrum to be in, and you pretty much won't get with any other show where you're like, I like this show, but its main character fucking sucks. But that's American Gods, I guess, at this point. And I'm really interested to see where they set it up, what they're going to do. Of course, we know they have season 3. Already covered that. Season 3 is coming back. When? They'll say next year. If that happens, is up in the air, of course. But just with the pace of the show at the moment and the way it could all potentially play out, I'm really like, just please set it up for hopefully a last season 3. I don't feel like you can stretch the show too much further without it just losing all interest of people. I already feel like a lot of people have lost interest in the show, of course. You can literally see it happen on this show if you've been watching it from episode 1. So I'm like, just please wrap it up in season 3. Do what you need to do. But we'll see. Next week is the final episode, and you'll be able to hear my thoughts then when we're back for the last episode, of course. So thank you for joining me, your viewing god, Dylan Blight, on this episode of Viewing Gods. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, Vivaladil. You can check out this show on YouTube at youtube.com/Explosion Network, where you can watch the video version, my face, fancy pictures, all sorts of things. Or if you'd just like to listen to the audio version, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and whatever podcasting service you'd like to use. And you can find links to all those things at explosionnetwork.com under the Viewing Gods page. And of course, over at explosionnetwork.com, you can find our other shows, much like our movie and TV podcast. What do you want to watch? You like movies? You like TV? You're watching this? You probably like TV shows. Maybe you want to listen to that as well. Until next week, swipe right on... No, Bilquis doesn't do Tinder anymore because she's a priest. No, she's a service person. Until next week, please bring him back. Please make Pablo live. #Pablo live.